For me, the golden era of Final Fantasy is between Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy X. These are the first games that I played in the series as a kid, and they are what made me fall in love with the franchise. And as the newer Final Fantasies came out from 12 and onward, I couldn't help but feel that the series lost a bit of its magic. And though it does seem that we may be on the dawn of a new golden era brought in from Yoshi P with the success of Final Fantasy XIV and the promise of Final Fantasy XVI on the horizon, in the meantime I decided to take a look back at what some say is a golden era in its own right. That's Final Fantasy IV through VI on the Super Nintendo, specifically Final Fantasy VI. So for the past few months I've been slowly going through Final Fantasy VI, and I've begun to see why some say this retro gem of a game is their favorite. So for this video I'm going to give you my first impressions of Final Fantasy VI and share with you what I think makes this game special in its own right. But before we get started, if you find yourself liking today's video, please consider giving it a like, and please share with me in the comments what is your favorite Final Fantasy era. So right off the bat, Final Fantasy VI starts with a beautiful cinematic intro scene paired with one of the best soundtracks of the series, Terra's theme. This type of slow cinematic intro with credits rolling reminds me more of a Martin Scorsese movie than a video game from the 90s. It makes me think of how blown away and impressed I would have been if I played this game back in 1994 when it first came out. That's not to say that I'm not impressed today, but I don't know how many other games were doing this level of care in their intros back then. And despite not having played this game when it first came out, I can still feel this whole scene dripping with nostalgia. The next thing that I notice is how many characters this game introduces, even early on, all with their unique class, abilities, and personality. And they're all uniquely placed in the world, with backstories that are explored through the main story and through secret cutscenes that you're able to find on your own time. The dialogue in Final Fantasy VI is short and to the point, due to the constraints of Nintendo cartridges back in the day. It's weird to think that we take for granted the amount of text that can be put in a game these days. But back then, games weren't 100 gigabytes, they weren't even a gig. So because of these constraints, they had to be more concise with their dialogue, conveying the most amount of information they can in the least amount of words. This contributes heavily to what many people say is this game's charm. And even though I'm playing a revised version of the game that was retranslated to better fit the original Japanese, the charm still shines through. By the way, I know I'm playing the wrong version of this game. A pixel remaster of Final Fantasy VI recently came out and it looks amazing, but I already had this other one purchased, so what are you gonna do? I'm not gonna buy it again. But despite these character models looking a little bit out of place, the world is still beautiful and sufficiently retro, and it plays retro too, in a good way. I do find myself from time to time needing to grind out a few levels before moving on in the story, and having to aggressively use potions and Phoenix Downs, reminding me of game loops that developers wouldn't dare make people go through today. But after a decade or two of overly simplistic UIs and games that hold your hand through mini-maps, it's kind of a breath of fresh air, to be honest. Dude, fuck that guy. Alright, anyways. I'm like not even in a good mood now, fuck that. Even if it does result in a few wasted minutes here or there. The game also has puzzles that you must figure out to progress the story. I feel like a younger Genji probably would have given up at some of these points, or at least would have resorted to looking at a guide. But you only get to experience a game for the first time once, so in this playthrough, I took my time and I figured everything out on my own. And I'll be honest, it was a bit of a struggle, but I did feel pretty good when I figured things out. And I think it would be a mistake if I didn't mention to you all the famous opera scene. A part of the game where you must get these lines of dialogue right for the performance to go on. This whole scene culminates to, let's say, a charming crescendo. I think this whole scene really encapsulates what makes this game special really well. It's fun, it doesn't take itself too seriously, it requires you to pay attention, and it's not afraid to go out on a limb and play with its creative license. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but Final Fantasy IX actually pays homage to this famous opera scene by having similar scenes of its own. And if you haven't picked up on this by now, I keep using the word charming to describe Final Fantasy VI. I can't exactly put my finger on it, but this game has a level of humor and self-awareness, but still proves it can take on serious subject matter. And it doesn't have a need to over-explain itself at every moment. Why is there a doom train in the middle of the forest? I don't know. Why did Snow White live with 7 dwarves? And while sure there are deeper themes beneath it all, it doesn't ram them down your throat worried that you won't catch them and give them a bad score on Metacritic. So is Final Fantasy VI better than the PlayStation Final Fantasies? Honestly, I couldn't tell you at this point. I haven't beat Final Fantasy VI, but I don't think it needs to be. It's very much its own thing, and it's confident in what it is. And despite all the years, I do think the game does hold up extremely well. If you have the patience to read all your dialogue and get wiped a few times from bad RNG, it will reward you in ways that developers seem to have more and more trouble with today. And with all that being said, I will continue playing Final Fantasy VI and experience what its world has to offer, and I'll give you another update when I've finished it. But if right now you're looking for a Final Fantasy and a taste of a different era, Final Fantasy VI might be the game for you. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If Final Fantasy VI is your favorite Final Fantasy, please let me know in the comments if you think that I did it justice with my first impressions, and please share with me what you think is special about the game. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I'll leave my Twitch link in the description, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.